Welcome to A Dose of Feel Good. I'm your host, Whitney Bischoff, and today we are talking about Follow the Warm Fuzzies. You can see full show notes at doseoffeelgood.my.canva.site. Now let's dive into today's episode. Welcome back, everyone, to another episode of Dose of Feel Good. And this one's going to make us all feel really good because our topic this week is titled Follow the Warm Fuzzies, which I'm sure y'all can tell that I am really looking forward to our conversation today because it aligns so much with trying to get feel good out into the universe, but really following what is it that makes us feel good and figuring out how do we follow those pieces. But before we dive too far into that, I do want to give a huge shout out to those of you who have stuck with us every single week. We have a very small but loyal following, which I really do appreciate. This journey has really helped me be more vulnerable and honestly helps me feel really good starting the week every week, bringing you all another episode. So I really appreciate that and the support. If you really enjoy these, I really would love if you would be open to sharing them. I also have a lot of really great content on social media. You can share in that way. I would love this to just impact more and more people. So the more that we can do that together as a feel-good community, the better. So, but let's dive right in. So what does it mean to follow the warm fuzzies? So I want to start with this notion that I think we can get stuck and focus sometimes on the wrong things in life. And I think what I mean by that is a lot of the time the tough stuff is what gets our attention. And we can get stuck in those moments where I feel like it can just suck more and more out of you. I know recently for me that I tend to, this is my notion in life. I'm I want to follow the things that make me feel good and follow those warm, fuzzy feelings. But when life comes and punches you in the face, or when we experience these moments or these spaces where it is negative or it's hard, we tend to focus on all of those pieces and get stuck there. And then, at least for me, it is a lot more difficult to pull myself out of those spaces. And so we have to be more intentional about how do we follow the things that really do make us feel good, especially when there are so many things that try to pull our attention to the harder things that maybe we're going through or that other people are going through. It's not that we ignore that that's happening. It's just that we have to be intentional about focusing on the different things, the things that do make us feel good. And I think it's important to do that because life is short. And I think for anyone who has experienced losing someone, or I think even who has had a health scare or anything like that, we recognize that life is short, but life is also not easy. And so when we take a moment to recognize what is it that makes us feel good and gives us that warm, fuzzy feeling, then we can follow it and be intentional, because I don't want to spend my life in those moments where it's hard and being stuck there and taking so much effort to get out of there. And I think just give yourself a moment to kind of pause and realize, or take a moment to decipher, when was the last time or the last moment where you had that warm, fuzzy feeling? You know what feeling I'm talking about. Who were you with? Were there certain people? What was going on in that moment? Where were you? And why do you think you had that feeling? And I think it all starts with recognizing and being intentional about this moment makes me feel good. And what is happening? What can I pull from there that I can then be intentional to create more of these moments? But we also have to capture those moments as they're happening, hold on to them and not take them for granted. I know I always say that it's almost like this soul fuel. That's like the warm, fuzzy feeling, but it's like this soul fuel that like there are just certain people and places, and I'll get into that a bit, that when I'm in that moment, I really am like, this is it. Like, this is that feeling that I want to be able to make happen over and over again. And I think when we're able to do that, we recognize that those moments are showing us what we need more of in order to feel good and live our best life. That's what that feeling is really teaching us. And it's this natural way of pointing us to where we should be focusing our energy in a positive way, right? Not to be toxic about it, but it's this natural way of like, this is what makes you feel good. So let's bring more of our energy and focus our energy in that positive way, rather than all of the doom and gloom and the spaces that bring us down. I don't want to put my energy into those spaces all of the time, because at least for me, it's really hard to pull myself out of that unless I'm intentional. So I think we have to follow those moments that really give us that warm, fuzzy feeling. And on the flip side of that, be brave enough to let the rest go. When we see those spaces or those, honestly, people or other things that weigh us down and continue to pull us down, separate yourself from that. Follow what's intentional and gives you that warm, fuzzy, feel-good feeling, and let the rest go. I think also when we're intentional about this, we are in control of what the next season of our lives look like. And in a selfish way, that allows us to be that warm and fuzzy feeling or moment for someone else. And I think it can be looked at as selfish, obviously, but I'm okay with that. I think there's sometimes where we have to be intentional about doing what makes us feel good, what gives us that warm and fuzzy feeling. And if there's other spaces or people or, I even think of like, music or movies or TV that weighs you down, let it go, right? Because if we want to focus our attention in that space, it's going to continue to bring us down. We are what we surround ourselves with. So why not surround ourselves with that warm, fuzzy feeling? I know that's what makes me feel good, and I want to follow that feeling. So I want to show this in a couple of different ways. I think, first of all, at least for me, the easiest way is through music. I have had to be a lot more intentional about following the warm, fuzzy feeling in terms of music versus being weighed down. And what I mean by that is I literally have playlists on my Spotify that are like happy, feel-good music, or literally it just says happy or upbeat. And when I'm kind of in that pit, I have to be intentional about even turning on that music that makes me feel good, because it gives me that warm, fuzzy feeling. Versus when I'm not in a super great place, I used to then, play sad, depressing music, and I felt like it just made it worse. You just doom into the spiral more and more. So I think using music as that example of like what makes you feel good, follow that warm, fuzzy feeling, and be intentional about giving yourself that space. So that's an easy, practical example. But I think another piece for me is being able to recognize and realize the spaces and people that drain me. I think we can all recognize certain people where it's all doom and gloom all of the time. And even spaces where I think of there are certain places that I'll walk into and I almost just get this like bad feeling, like following your gut, or just being around the environment. And at the end, you just feel heavy. And I often ask myself, like, when I have that heavy feeling versus the warm, fuzzy feeling, is this meant for me? Or what is meant for me in this moment? And sometimes it's just that separation of recognizing, like, this isn't meant for me. Like, I want to go find that warm, fuzzy feeling. And so, like I said earlier, like, finding my soul people. I met a random person through my work about, I think it was almost 2 years ago now. And we do a lot of really great things, spreading kindness, things like that. I am someone who I tend to go into deep conversations really, really quickly. That's how I connect with people. So it might scare people off, but that's okay. That's where the warm, fuzzy feeling comes in, where I want to be around people who can connect with me on that level. Anyways, with this person, I always say, like, you're my soul food, in terms of like this warm, fuzzy feeling that whenever we are able to go and have coffee and just talk about life and all of our ideas, this podcast comes up all of the time. I have this warm, fuzzy feeling afterwards, and I'm like, I want the people in my life who can do that for me, or in the spaces like that. Like, being outside in the sunlight is a huge thing for me, or even being in like certain coffee shops. Like, there's a different almost vibe in different spaces. Like, I want the ones where like I feel like I belong there. And sometimes you can't even articulate like what it is about those spaces, but there are also certain spaces that I intentionally avoid because I'm like, I don't fit in here. I can't really tell you why, but I don't get that warm, fuzzy feeling. And so it's almost like you have to be intentional and like reflect when you're in different environments or people or things that are happening, of like, on what end of the spectrum is it weighing me down, or is it giving me that warm, fuzzy feeling? And so that way you can be more intentional about the people and the places and environments that you're surrounding yourself, and even the things that you're doing, so that you can follow that warm, fuzzy feeling. And when we do that, I think the joy that comes from that, like, it's so present. Like, we might not recognize that from the outside because we just want to feel good, but other people see it. The joy that we emulate is absolutely contagious. And I think that, at least for people like myself, that it's like, it's hard to sometimes be selfish and put ourselves first. And some of us we sacrifice so much of ourselves to make other people feel good. But I think when we recognize following that warm, fuzzy feeling for ourselves, it is contagious for everybody else. And at the end of the day, like, we deserve to feel good. We deserve to be a little selfish and follow those things that make us feel good, because we're the only ones who will be able to do that for ourselves and can always put ourselves first. No one else has the capacity to do it for you. Like, as humans, we're naturally selfish. We're naturally trying to find the things that make ourselves feel good, and we put ourselves first, even if we don't think we're doing that. But we're pursuing the things that like are making us feel good. Like, I am not always thinking about, oh, I better make sure this person feels good, or this person feels good, or this person feels good, because that's exhausting. Like, we don't have the capacity to do that for everybody. So we're the only ones who can do it for ourselves. So we have to be intentional about, when we're talking about that spectrum between following the warm, fuzzy feeling versus what weighs us down. We are the only ones who have the capacity to continue to pursue that warm, fuzzy feeling. And I like, even on a biological level, like, it gives us the endorphins and the dopamine and all of those pieces that, yes, boost our happy feelings in our body, but it also helps us live longer. It helps our brains be healthier. And we have the capacity to be in the driver's seat of what that looks like. And I love that, especially like as someone who has a lot of actual health things, neurological things in my brain. I'm like, I can't control a lot of that, but I can control feeling good and hopefully buffering some of that literally from feeling good, from following that warm, fuzzy feeling that like I can control those neurotransmitters that hopefully act as a protective factor almost. And I think when we recognize that the warm, fuzzy feelings, they can be captured, they can be relied on, even when we aren't at our best. They give us that direction that when we maybe are being weighed down and it's really hard to come out of those spaces, we can be intentional about following those warm, fuzzy feelings because we have reflected. We know what does that for us, and we can be intentional about putting more of that into our lives and cutting out the things that do weigh us down. And choosing to do that, even if there might be people that makes unhappy, right? Like, we have to put ourselves first and be our best advocate and go after that life that does make us feel really good and gives us that nice, warm, fuzzy feeling. So how do we do that? And I know I've talked a lot about that, but our call to action, first, we have to recognize when that feeling is happening and what it means for us. So like I said, for me, I always say like it's this soul fuel, whether that's people, environments, places, things that I'm doing, all of the above, like having to recognize what is it, that feeling that really makes me feel good, and capturing what's happening in that moment, the who, what, where, when, why, all of those pieces, so that you can be intentional about replicating that again. I think also give yourself permission and space to feel good, especially like when you've been weighed down for so long and have had to sacrifice maybe so much to for everybody else. Like, give yourself permission to follow that warm, fuzzy feeling and be intentional about making that a common practice. And at the end of the day, just owning the life that's waiting for you when you do actively feel good and are intentional about following those warm, fuzzy feelings that, I mean, even as I say that, which is so funny, like I literally have goosebumps because I think it's a reminder for myself too that sometimes we just have to let things go so that way we can have that beautiful, warm life that gives us light, gives us joy, and is contagious to everybody else. And when we do that, like, I just truly believe our opportunities are endless, both for ourselves and for everybody else. And that's the impact that we're all hoping to have at the end of the day, and to live that life that ultimately, like, we all are looking to have. So it's out there. We just have to be intentional and go and find it. So with that, that's where we're going to wrap up today. I also want to really encourage you, like, do one thing, both today as you're listening to this episode, whenever that might be, but also this week. Do something that can give you that warm, fuzzy feeling. As I was writing the outline today, I literally had a playlist that said warm, fuzzy feelings and had music playing, and it did give me that warm, fuzzy feeling, and I'm like, I need more of this in my life. So I encourage you to pursue the same. So have a wonderful week, and join us again next week. Thank you so much for listening, and I hope you are feeling ready to conquer the week and let your impact ripple out to the world around you. Let's connect on Instagram and Threads at Dose of Feel Good Podcast. If you're loving the podcast, I'd love it if you'd hit that subscribe button and leave a review. Until next time, share your own dose of feel good and never underestimate the power of positivity.